Hi, welcome to In the Kitchen with Shakthi. I'm Dr. Rao. We have a special guest today, Cheryl McKee from Nourishing Abundance in Frederick, Maryland, above the tasting room. She is a board certified nutritionist as well as a life coach. Welcome. And thank you for helping us make life simple by teaching us some techniques of how to make a good, healthy breakfast. Tell us what we're going to do here today.
So we're going to actually, because it's getting cold out and everybody's looking for something nice and warm but fast in the morning, we're going to make some oatmeal, and we're going to flavor it a couple of different ways, but show you how you can mix fresh fruit and some nuts and seeds and some coconut milk and some thick spices to make it a really nice, lovely, warming
So
breakfast.
we can do savory oatmeals and we can do sweeter oatmeals, but usually when you add things like fruits and you're adding nuts, you're adding omegas, you're adding good fats, it balances out the sugar content, and you're using good steel-cut oats, which will also add some fiber. So it's not a surge of sugar that's coming in like a cereal would do, right? A box cereal.
Yes.
And then we're also thinking about adding some currants or dates or dried fruits or...
We're going to hold off on that. So what I want to say is I love the flavor of currants. I prefer that over the raisins.
Okay.
I like to cook it into the oatmeal when I'm making it, but it's just a little tiny amount of any kind of dried fruit if you're going to have it. We're going to use fresh today because when you cook fruit down, you actually need to cook a lot more in order to get the same balance. And I like having a little bit of raw mixed with the warm cooked stuff. I think it's a good balance to have.
Yes, and it's crunchy.
Keeps the fiber, keeps the crunch and the texture, and
but
it's vibrant.
So sometimes people ask me also about their sugar content, if they have sugar issues, insulin resistance and diabetes. Almost 1/3 of Americans have either one of them. 80 million people have insulin resistance. They don't even know it. So the sugar content is important even if it's coming from fruit. We want to be very mindful of the fact that it's serving sizes of fruits as well. I've also, I know we're not showing that today, but I've made, my favorite are savory, more vegetable-based oatmeals.
One of the best oatmeals I've ever had in my life was made with mushrooms and a stock, a nice vegetable stock. It was so rich and delicious.
Right, so
I
we always
love that.
think of sugary
garlic.
oatmeals, but you can absolutely do it with vegetables, and you can absolutely do it savory.
100% of the time. Okay. I'm going to do this one just because it's morning, and
Yeah.
most of my clients have some form of blood sugar dysregulation, but they want something sweeter in the morning. And a lot of times when we're working with somebody who has insulin resistance or they're already pre-diabetic or diabetic, we have to get their tongue to move from that sweet palate over to a savory palate.
Okay.
And one of the ways that we do it is take the foods that they're eating right now and actually turn it into a nice balanced meal so they can still have that sweet taste, but their blood sugar isn't going to be doing this stuff.
Okay.
So that's the kind of the goal of this, and this is actually really good for kids too because it's warming and it's sweet, and kids tend to like that first thing in the morning. So, and it goes good with black coffee. A lot of times I'm trying to get people to reduce the amount of sugar and creamer that they're putting into their coffee. And when you have a little bit sweet breakfast, you can actually get closer to that black coffee, which is better for you.
That's great. We're using oatmeal.
Yep.
Right. So steel cut versus regular. Comments?
It doesn't honestly matter. I like the steel cut better because it's less refined, and I like that little bit of crunch that goes into it. It does take longer to cook if you use the old-fashioned steel cut, or if you use old-fashioned oats altogether.
But some of these are processed, right, in the boxes, so we have to be careful about keeping the fiber in.
Right.
So
This one is a quick cook. It's still steel cut. It doesn't have as much off of it, but it's been pre-cooked.
Okay, so
and then dry.
So it's still
So-
nutritional sauce.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to basically take 2 packets of this, because we're going to do 2 different kinds. I like to do it on the stove. I don't really like to microwave that much, to be truthful. I don't like the energy that comes out of the microwave. It's rattling all of the atoms around and kind of making them angry to heat them up. So I like to use the stove. I think it also stays hot much longer, which I like. I like my food if it's hot to be hot.
What about the gluten-free versus non-gluten-free? And how strong is the gluten-free connection for patients who have gluten issues?
So if you have a gluten sensitivity, you're probably okay with eating just regular oats. But if you have celiac, then you really should make certain that it's certified, gluten-free.
Does this have anything on there that says if it's gluten-free?
This one is not.
Okay.
Well, technically oats are a gluten-free grain, right? The real issue comes in the fact that they get processed
Yeah.
along with other oats, and so that
Yeah.
gluten that's in the air is getting into them. So if you have celiac, make certain that you're getting one that says gluten-free. So we've got it into the pan. One thing I'm going to say is when you cook oats, I like to add just a little tiny pinch of salt to it because it doesn't really have much flavor. And that little tiny pinch of salt will actually bring up the flavor once we start adding other things in. But it's just a little pinch, so like that. That's it. Doesn't have to be a lot. Okay. And then I like to let them cook for just a moment. I like them a little bit softer. I don't want them to have too much crunch, but I don't want them soggy either. There you go. Slowly coming down, and we'll just let it go for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and cut up our fruit and our nuts and get ready to add that to our oatmeal.
Comment on which kind of apple you're using or what.
This is a Gala.
They're sweeter.
They're a little bit sweeter, but they're firmer. Here is super easy. And again, turn it over so it's flat. Go down, come back at an angle, back at an angle. When you're done, and then you can just come back in and allow that little bit of pork that's there. These are supposed to be walnut pieces, but they're actually quite halved. So just gonna rough cut them.
In terms of nuts, walnuts tend to be the most cardioprotective in terms of cardiovascular benefits.
Yeah.
They have a lot of omega-3s in them. They also have not quite the sugar content that cashews have.
Okay. I tend not to measure an awful lot.
Right.
So a
fits
little
in
bit in
the
your
palm.
hand. Yep, there you go, a couple of tablespoons. It's great. I like that too. They have a little bit of a bitter undertone to them, which is also good. All right, here we go. So we're gonna put in a little bit of walnuts. We're gonna add our, let me just go ahead and use this up. We're gonna add some oats and some coconut milk and a couple of spices. So what we're gonna do, this is coconut milk. It has a little bit of vanilla in it and some cinnamon. It's not gonna be strong enough, I don't think, flavor-wise for this. So all we're doing is mixing it in, and then we'll taste it and see if we wanna add some more cinnamon to it. Oh, it's so good. All right, so now we have the pear one, and we're gonna basically add the same thing, but what we're gonna do in here is kind of give it a little bit of a chai flavor. So we're gonna add a little bit more cinnamon, a little bit of ginger, and a little bit of turmeric. And I'm not measuring here, but this is probably, I would say if you're not used to doing this, start with about 1/4 teaspoon and add more as you decide how you like it. I can get a whole teaspoon in there because I really like those flavors together. Let me know if it needs more spices. Like I said, I always start on the slight side and add more. It tastes really good. Is it good? Okay, good. That's great. Thank you. So those are two, you see how fast we did that. It's so easy in the morning, especially if you have, I mean, we did 2 different kinds, which is, we have kids who have different flavor profiles or whatever. There's always a way to do it quickly and always a way to make it appeal to just about anybody in your house. So give it a try. See what you think.